This is Miller Philosopher. This is going to be a redo of one of my first videos that I did on my channel about how the death scene of Boromir is my favorite out of the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy. And the reason why I'm redoing it is because I was listening to the Lament of Boromir, and I went over that video in particular, and I liked the topic of it so much that because of the bad audio that was in it, because like I said, one of my first videos, I decided to redo it because it was worked at, as well as giving some new insights I may have on that as well. So we all know the deal about Boromir being the son of Denethor, steward of Gondor, and how he was basically brave and courageous, but was the first of the Fellowship to be corrupted by the ring, which ultimately ends in him betraying Frodo and then trying to redeem himself by saving the other hobbits from a bunch of Uruk-hai, which results in his heroic death. Now, recently I've come across some videos online that talked about how toxic masculine the idea of men wanting to get themselves killed in battle and seen it as glorious was. That essentially that all men, according to them, seem to have this urge, this primal desire somehow to want to throw ourselves in a bunch of swords, spears, or bullets so that we can have a glorious death, and how they basically felt that this was stupid because how much better was it to live your life for something rather than die for something, which is a good point. It would be better to live for a cause if you can than die for a cause. But I also felt that that particular point of view that they were addressing it from was wrong, and Boromir perfectly contextualizes this point. That essentially Boromir lived for Gondor, and he was all about Gondorian pride to the point where he considered anything that was a threat to that needed to be dealt with or was basically suspicious, which is why in the movies he has that tense standoff with Aragorn for so long. And to be fair to Boromir, that was largely, I think, Aragorn's fault as well, because he kind of gave him the evil eye, as it were, when he was touching Narsil. But regardless of that, Boromir and his death scene was my favorite because it exemplified the humanity, the true humanity of that world, and where it kind of connects the fantasy world of Lord of the Rings to real life. There is something in his story, in his arc, where he comes off as an asshole, and it's steadily revealed that he's under a tremendous amount of pressure to restore Gondor back to its old glory, and that Gondor is on the verge of being overwhelmed by Sauron, that he is looking for an out. He's looking for anything that will help him give the advantage to help the people of Gondor, and thereby also help the rest of Middle-earth. So his reasons aren't selfish. They're actually very selfless. But the ring, being the Ring of Sauron, is able to corrupt that to the point where it becomes selfish, against his will, mind you, in a way. And that he essentially was willing to break his own honor and his own code in order to achieve that, at least for a little bit. But then he kind of gets his shit together, more or less. And like I said earlier, he defends the hobbits and has that great fight scene / death scene at the end of Fellowship of the Ring. Now, when you compare him to other characters who are people's favorites, like Aragorn or even the hobbits themselves, those points of view are easy to see why, because they're kind of the main consistent protagonists of the story. And both the books, I think, and the movies for sure put them more in a positive light, though the movies try to put a little bit more gray on it, but they still come off with a lot of shine. And Boromir isn't given that shine so much, at least not until the very end. You get bits and pieces of that shine as the movie of Fellowship goes along, but it doesn't really come through till the very end. And, that's on purpose. And I think it's that element of dirtiness that makes him more relatable than Aragorn and the other characters in the books, because of the fact that he, for me at least in a way, represents that aspect of these tremendous worldly responsibilities that we all have to deal with, and the pressures that could come along with that, and how those pressures can be overwhelming. You know, if you're going through bills or have pressures where someone's trying to sue you, or you actually are getting into a fight or have to fight other people physically, you know, those are elements that feel like they're trying to crush you and destroy you. So that feeling of desperation is entirely natural, as it were. Having said that, most of us would look for some kind of advantage in those situations to get that victory, to get out of that situation. And that's not a bad thing. And that's kind of one of the great things about his story, is that what he wants is not bad. It's not evil. It's not like Sauron per se, where he's like trying to take over the world or whatever. He's not out to even destroy all orcs, for that matter. He's out to defend his people of Gondor and defend the rest of Middle-earth as by proxy of that. And the reason why I'm so touched by his death scene so much is that he doesn't give up. It's said that he is of the pure, one of the few remaining Gondorians that is of the pure line of Numenor, and it really shows through in that scene. How, you know, he gets shot up with a bunch of arrows and he doesn't give up. Even to the point where he has to break one of the arrows that's in his ribs and his lungs in order to kill, you know, an oncoming Uruk-hai trying to take the hobbits. He doesn't give up until his body just quits on him. And even then, it was his body that quit on him, not his will. The will was entirely there. It was the will that kept him going, you know. And for me, I find it admirable, and the opposite of this idea that it's this toxic masculine thing of trying to selfishly seek to die gloriously in battle. Because as legitimate as that point of view is, per se, the fact of the matter is that there are just points in life sometimes where we can look for other avenues to live for other people, you know, to live for that career or job or whatever, but that we don't have that option anymore. You know, all of those options have been taken away. You know, the soldier who throws himself on a grenade, or it's about to blow up, it's about to be destroyed, there is no going back. So what do? They go into the target to save their other soldiers and their own nation, or whatever the case might be. That isn't selfish. That is not selfishly seeking glory. That is, all other options have now been shut, and this is the only one that you legitimately have left. And if that's the only one you have left, and your life is like ticking down literally by the second, then, you know, you're trying to make it count for something. You're trying to make it worth something. And that's Boromir. Boromir is that person where he had, like, there's that one scene where he gets shot with one of those arrows, and he realizes that he's going to die, you know, but he makes a decision not just lay there and just die, but to make every last second and ounce of strength count while he is still alive. Even if it is futile and pointless, he's going to make it count for something because of his love for his friends. And that's what makes that death scene so beautiful, and why I believe that refutes this idea that the seeking death in battle is entirely toxic, because it's not. Can it be? Absolutely. And there's plenty of examples in movies and in real life where that is the case. But it's not all the time. And it's, I believe, the height of arrogance to say otherwise, that everyone who does this and every character who does this is just some warhawk who's just trying to get his jollies basically from getting shut up. That's not the case. But otherwise, basically, those are my thoughts on Boromir and why his death is my favorite. because he is the most human out of all of the characters of the Fellowship, as great as they all are, by the way, and that his situation is the most relatable to me as a viewer. But let me know your thoughts below. This is the Miller Philosopher, and have a good day.